The hum of the xenogenetics lab was a steady, sterile rhythm, precise, unbothered, and comfortably familiar to Dr. Elara Voss. She'd spent the last 15 years on orbital station, Halcyon 7 cataloging and decoding the genetic fingerprints of alien life forms, charting new biological frontiers with cool detachment and scientific discipline. This scan was meant to be no different. Another unknown rescued from deep space silence. Another enigma for the system to classify, label, and store. The girl on the other side of the reinforced glass looked to be in her teens, though her physiology made it impossible to tell for certain. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim blue of the sterile lights, catching every movement with silver reflections. Her hair, if it could be called that, was a cascade of delicate tendrils like woven strands of moonlight. Her chest rose and fell in rhythmic pulses. Not one but 3 hearts, Elara had confirmed. The scan should have taken 30 seconds. Instead, it had been nearly 10 minutes. Elara stared at the results, her brows narrowing, the muscles around her eyes tightening as if trying to force the data to make sense. She cleared the screen and began again. The DNA sequencing display activated, painting the air with holographic spirals of helix data, each strand shifting in real time as the quantum analyzer mapped the girl's genome. Human DNA was complex but familiar. Alien DNA was often chaotic, coiled in patterns that took months to unravel. But this was something else entirely. One spiral flashed red, then green, then stopped entirely. The results populated across the console. Genetic match, 52.3%. Human, Dr. Elara Voss. She stared at the line like it had just accused her of a crime. Her breath caught in her throat. Elara rechecked the source ID, ensured the scan was still reading the subject in quarantine chamber 3. She isolated the sample, reran the core analysis, disabled the anomaly filter. The system ran cold, without emotion, and yet somehow each pass felt like it screamed same result again same result. It didn't make sense. It couldn't. She had never carried a child, never participated in any cloning programs. There was no stored ovum, no surrogacy contract, no conceivable pathway for this being's genetic profile to match hers in any significant percentage. And yet here it was, displayed in brutal clarity across her console, every protein sequence, every chromosomal pair mirroring her own. She stepped back from the display. Her gloved hands trembled slightly, and she instinctively pulled them too. Her sides, as if afraid to contaminate something, or perhaps afraid she had already been contaminated. She looked up, across the room, to the observation window. Lira sat quietly, legs folded beneath her, gaze locked onto the floor. But as if sensing Elara's attention, the girl lifted her head. Her eyes silver, with flecks of violet, met hers. There was something in them, not fear, not confusion. Something far more intimate. Recognition. Elara took a step forward, unaware of it, unable to stop herself. Her breath slowed. The glass between them no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a mirror. The display behind her kept pulsing red, then green, then still again, confirming over and over that the impossible wasn't just theory. It was alive, watching her. Waiting. The chamber lights dimmed to a sterile blue as the security seals hissed into place behind Elara. The corridor to quarantine chamber 3 stretched ahead like a tunnel through the belly of some breathing, mechanical beast. Her boots echoed sharply against the composite flooring, and with each step, her heartbeat seemed to sync with the rhythmic pulse of the reinforced walls. She didn't bring a team. She didn't want a witness. The console readout still haunted her. 52% genetic match. Lira wasn't just part human. She was part her. But there were no records, no experiments, no accidental samples. Elara had devoted her life to science, not family. She hadn't even taken lovers in over a decade. There was no possibility. And yet every biological marker screamed the same. Truth. The door slid open with a whisper. Inside, Lira sat on the padded observation couch. Her bioluminescent skin glowed faintly in reaction to the low light, casting soft motes of silver across the walls. Her legs were tucked beneath her in a perfectly symmetrical posture, calculated, deliberate, not nervous, not fidgeting, just watching. I'm Dr. Voss, Elara said softly, not yet crossing the threshold. I scanned your vitals when you arrived. How are you feeling? Lira tilted her head. Her voice was soft, airy. I'm not sick. I think I'm waiting. Elara blinked. Waiting for what? I don't know yet, but you're part of it. The tone wasn't threatening. It wasn't even eerie. It was factual, like a report from deep within a dream. Elara stepped fully into the room and let the door seal behind her. I need to ask you some questions, she said, her voice firmer now. Do you remember anything before you were found? Lira blinked slowly. Stars, a hum, floating, a voice singing, but it wasn't sound. It was a pull. You speak standard remarkably well. It's in me, like I always had it. She paused. Like your language found me. A chill threaded through Elara's spine. This wasn't a simple hybrid accident. There was a pattern here, a design. She activated her portable scanner not to run another test, but to project a 3D representation of Lira's genetic lattice. The air shimmered with spiraling strands of DNA, a helix like a sculpture of glowing thread. Elara swiped to isolate a unique sequence, one she had flagged earlier, but hadn't dared analyze too deeply. I need to show you something, she said. This section here, this isn't just genetic code. It's layered. Lira stood, slowly, her feet whispering against the floor. She moved closer into the glow of the helix. It's singing, she whispered. What? The shapes, the light. It's not just data. It's a pattern. I remember it, not with my mind, somewhere else. Elara turned toward her, pulse accelerating. You remember a genetic pattern? I am the pattern, Lira said, and as she spoke, the room's lights flickered. The DNA projection pulsed once, then fragmented. Shapes exploded from the helix, geometric shards of holographic code spiraling into an impossible matrix in Lira. Elara gasped. That shouldn't have happened. The projection system was inert, non-reactive. It had never responded to a subject. Air in the room grew warmer. Elara backed away from the projection, heart pounding. Stop it, she whispered. You're interfering with the scan. I'm not doing anything, Lira said calmly. It's responding to you. The geometric shapes reassembled suddenly, forming not a double helix, but a trifold spiral, something Elara had only seen once in her life years ago, embedded in ancient Forerunner ruins buried beneath Centauri ice. No, she muttered, shaking her head. No, that's not possible. Those artifacts, those glyphs were dormant. They didn't respond to anything. Because they were waiting, Lira said. For the right key? Elara's hands trembled. What are you? I don't. No, Lira said, turning to face her fully now. But I think you're the only one who can help me find out. Elara stared at her, really stared. The shape of her jaw, the arch of her brow, subtle things, human things, her things, but fused with something so alien it bent every law of genetics. A soft chime from Elara's com broke the silence. It was Cho. Dr. Voss, we've reanalyzed the protein data from her blood. There's something you need to see immediately. The sequences, they're reacting to your presence. We think they're evolving. She barely heard him. Her eyes were locked on Lira, who now stepped into the projection. The holographic symbols rotated around her, hovering in place like they knew her. "I've seen this," Lira sighed, voice distant, "in dreams, before I ever opened my eyes." Elara's breath caught. The symbols' Forerunner glyphs began shifting again, but this time they formed a word, a Centauri word, one Elara hadn't spoken in 20 years. Mother. The lab lights flickered as Dr. Elara Voss stormed into the restricted lower chamber, her breath shallow, her mind racing. The word hadn't left her head since the glyphs had formed it in that impossible swirl of living code. Mother. The Forerunner. Symbols weren't just ancient language. They were sentient blueprints, intelligent, reactive, and evolving. And somehow they had recognized her. Dr. Merrick Cho was already at the sequencing bay, hands dancing across the quantum interface as streams of holographic data poured across the chamber walls in waves of electric blue. His usual calm demeanor was gone. His eyes were wide. "You saw it too?" he asked without turning. "I did," Elara said. "They formed a word. They spoke to me. More than that." Merrick brought up a strand of data and magnified it, until it became a spiraling tunnel of molecular complexity. "This is Lira's latest protein output. Look at the base architecture. It's reorganizing in real time. Some of it is mimicking your own DNA, Elara, and some of it isn't on any xenobiological registry in the known galactic network." Elara stepped closer, watching the structures shift and dance like firelight across the projection. "That pattern," she whispered. "I've seen it before." Merrick looked at her sharply. "Where?" she hesitated. "In the Forerunner archives, during the Centauri excavation. It was buried in the lower glyphs, part of a failed activation attempt. But it never responded to any Centauri or human presence. Until now." Merrick's brow furrowed. "Then what's changed?" Elara didn't answer. She already knew. Lira had changed it, or worse. Lira had completed it. Before either of them could speak again, the chamber trembled. A deep subsonic vibration pulsed through the metal floor and vibrated up Elara's spine, like a tuning fork. Alarms blinked to life overhead, silent red strobes casting jagged shadows on the walls. Power draw detected. The station's AI voice rang out. "Unscheduled energy surge in Artifact Vault A source, Quarantine Chamber 3. Elara's heart jumped into her throat. She turned and ran. The corridors blurred around her, the hum of magnetic lifts warping into a sick rising whine. The lights overhead sputtered as the station's backup systems attempted to stabilize. Whatever was happening, it was centered on Lira and the vault that had remained sealed for 2 decades. As she approached the quarantine wing, armed security units were already converging. She flashed her credentials and pushed past them before anyone could stop her. The door to Chamber 3 was no longer sealed. It had disassembled. The entire wall had fractured into geometric pieces, suspended in midair, rotating like pieces of a puzzle not yet complete. In the center of the storm, Lira hovered 6 inches off the floor, her body surrounded by a cocoon of cascading light. Her eyes were closed, her body perfectly still, but from her chest radiated spiraling waves of energy, gold, silver, violet each. Pulse sending ripples through the room that warped gravity itself. "Lira!" Elara called out, but the sound bent away from the energy field. Behind her, Merrick skidded into the room, eyes wide with horror and awe. "She's syncing with the vault," he said. "You need to see this." He tapped his datapad and the holographic feed from the artifact chamber displayed above them. Inside, the long-dormant Forerunner construct was glowing. Lines of alien script ran like rivers across its stone-like surface, and the air above it shimmered as if heated by a distant sun. "They were never dead," Elara breathed. "The Forerunners. They were asleep, waiting for something, for someone. And now she's waking them up, Merrick said. Another pulse hit them stronger this time. Elara staggered and caught herself against the bulkhead. The projection around Lira shifted suddenly. New symbols bloomed into view, wrapping around the girl. Like vines of ancient fire. Elara, Merrick said slowly. Look at that. The glyphs had reorganized again. The message was clear, unmistakable. She is the catalyst. Security officers raised their weapons, but Elara threw her arm out. No, stand down. She's not attacking us, she's transforming. But even she couldn't explain what was happening. Lyra's body began to dissolve, not die, but restructure. Her form became translucent, threads of data and light merging with the energy field. A projection formed behind her, an echo, or perhaps a memory, a tall figure with glowing skin and ancient eyes. A Forerunner, Elara Voss, the echo said. Its voice vibrated directly into her bones. You are the bridge. She is the key. I don't understand, Elara said, her voice cracking. You seeded her with a choice you never made. Your union with Kale, your fear, your loss, all of it created what we needed, a being of two worlds, born from will, not design. Tears sprang to Elara's eyes. She's not just a hybrid. No, the voice said. She is our final chance, the veil between species, between time, between what was and what must become. Then, with a final surge of energy, the projection collapsed into Lyra's body. The energy field vanished. She collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive, and in that silence, the only sound Elara could hear was her own heart pounding. But something had changed. Outside, Halcyon 7 drifted around a silent blue world. Inside, Destiny had just awakened. And its name was Lira. The emergency lockdown sirens had barely faded when the entire research wing of Halcyon 7 descended into stunned silence. Dr. Elara Voss stood over the unconscious form of the girl. She now had no choice but to call her daughter. Lyra's body, once a delicate harmony of alien biology and bioluminescent elegance, now pulsed faintly with threads of light running just beneath her skin, light that had not been there before. Medical officers moved cautiously, approaching. As though Lira were radioactive, Elara barked at them. No sedatives, no restraints, just monitoring. I'll take full responsibility. They hesitated. Even in the age of interstellar protocol, what had just occurred bordered on myth. A child who could interface with Forerunner relics. A girl whose DNA wasn't just a biological anomaly, but an ancient cipher living code that unlocked artifacts once thought dead. Lira was stabilized and transported to the private isolation wing, flanked by two of the station's elite guards who looked more nervous than prepared. As the doors sealed, Elara turned to Merrick. She's more than a key, Merrick. I think she's a message. He nodded slowly, then lowered his voice. And if we don't figure out what she's meant to unlock, someone else will. That someone came the next morning. Commander Tyran Solari of the Centauri Special Directorate stepped onto the station like a spear dressed in uniform. His pale, almost metallic skin shimmered faintly in the corridor lighting, his eyes sharp and angular like a hawk bred for strategy. He wasted no time on greetings. You discovered a hybrid child interfacing with Forerunner relics on a live orbital station, he said flatly to Elara in the operations debrief room. You didn't notify Centauri authorities. I had no evidence she was Centauri at all, Elara shot back. And she's not a weapon. She's a person. She's a breach, he interrupted. You understand what this means? The Forerunner Accords were built on the premise that no one could control their legacy. If your daughter is the first to interface, she didn't interface, Tyran, Elara said, her voice rising. She activated them, Silence fell. Even the AI assistant paused its readouts, as if the word had wait.tyrn finally sat. Then the others will come, Elara frowned. Others? He leaned forward. The progenitor fringe. The remnants. The cult of continuum. They've waited decades for proof the Forerunners left something behind that could still be awakened. Now you've given them that proof. Your daughter is a target. The weight of his words dropped like a gravity well in Elara's chest. They had been so focused on understanding what Lira was, they had forgotten to ask who might already be looking for her. That night, Elara stood outside the private isolation, Wing watching Lira through a polarized glass window. The girl was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, body still. Monitors above her showed strange patterns, waveforms with peaks that defied physics, readings that the station's AI had flagged as incompatible with standard biological norms. Suddenly, Lira opened her eyes. She looked straight at the glass, and spoke out without moving her lips. They're coming. Elara's chest seized. She burst through the door without authorization. Who's coming? Lira tilted her head, her voice slow, ethereal. The ones who followed the echoes. The ones who thought the Forerunners left behind weapons. But they were wrong. The Forerunners left something harder to control. Elara knelt beside her. What did they leave? Hope, Lira whispered. And bloodlines. Then she reached out, touched Elara's hand. In that instant, Elara was no longer in the room. Her mind was somewhere else inside a memory that didn't belong to her. Silver ship descending toward a storm-wrapped planet. A Centauri Mankale reaching out to a pod, sealing a glowing embryo inside. A whisper of code passed into ancient machinery. His voice saying, Forgive me, Elara. I had to keep her safe. Then darkness. And then Elara snapped back, gasping. Lyra's. Hand still touched hers. You saw him, Lira said softly. You remember. Elara nodded, breathless. He made you without telling me. He hid you inside something ancient. The stasis matrix, Lira said. Hidden beneath layers of time and metal. The same tech you tried to decode 20 years ago. He used Forerunner tech to grow you. To save you, Elara whispered, and now it's waking me up. Elara leaned back, trembling. Then it wasn't just about genetics. It was about design. Your existence was intentional. Lira's bioluminescence shimmered brighter. And so was yours. Before Elara could ask what she meant, the station lights turned red. An unauthorized vessel had entered Halcyon 7, airspace, and it wasn't broadcasting an Alliance signature. The hunters had arrived, and they were here for the girl, who had survived the Forerunner's sleep. The klaxon wail echoed through the station's curved halls like a siren of ancient war. Halcyon 7 had known visitors, dignitaries, even hostile inspections, but never silence like this. The kind of silence that swallowed commands, that made veteran guards freeze mid-step, that hummed with something unspoken, something watching back. Dr. Elara Voss stood in the command deck beside Commander Tyran Solari, eyes locked on the central display as the unidentified vessel closed in. It didn't match any design in the interstellar database. No known propulsion, no visible weaponry. Just a long, dark hull shaped like a blade, drifting through space like it had always been there, waiting. Waiting for a signal. The signal was, Lira, how did they find us so fast? Elara demanded, her voice sharp. Tyron's jaw tightened. Because we sent out a beacon the moment she activated the vault. Not intentionally. The interface must have triggered a Forerunner failsafe. And if the beacon reached them, then they've been listening longer than we've known how to speak. Who are they? Tyran gave her a look colder than deep vacuum. The Continuum, Forerunner fanatics. They believe activation is prophecy. that only the worthy may ascend through the technology left behind. And if they don't think Lira's worthy, they'll kill her and take what's inside. The words hit harder than Elara expected, not because they were brutal, but because she knew they were true. She spun toward the comm unit, sealed the medical wing. I want all non-essential crew off that level. Full lockdown now. Tyrion raised a hand. That won't be enough. They don't breach walls. They walk through them. Their weapon is belief. The ship outside moved closer. No engines fired. No comms were sent. But sensors were screaming gravitational shifts, quantum interference, false echoes mimicking station systems. Elara turned back to the viewport, watching the vessel approach. Its surface rippled. It was alive. Back in the private isolation chamber, Lira opened her eyes. She already knew. "They're here," she whispered, her voice low but steady. Elara burst into the room moments later, lab coat fluttering behind her like the tail of a comet. "We have to move you." Lira didn't rise. She simply stared at her mother. "You can't run from them. You have to remember what I showed you." "I remember Kale's message," Elara said. "I remember how he used the vault, how he hid you. But that doesn't give us weapons. It doesn't give us a defense." "No," Lira said, now rising to her feet, the light beneath her skin glowing stronger with each breath. "It gives us something better." Suddenly, a crack split the far wall not from damage, but from displacement. Reality itself seemed to twist, a fracture in space forming like a ripple in water. Through it stepped a figure cloaked in black threads that shimmered like oil and glass. Its face was smooth, featureless, except for a ring of symbols glowing where eyes should be. "Elara Voss?" The voice echoed, not from its mouth but directly into her mind. "You have trespassed on what is sacred. You have bred convergence, where only separation was decreed." Elara stepped in front of Lira instinctively, her hands clenched. "She's not your prophecy. She's my daughter." "You are not her mother," the figure hissed. "You are her carrier, the vessel. She belongs to the continuum." "No," Lira said, stepping forward. "I belong to no one." She raised her hand, and the walls rippled with ancient light. The Forerunner glyphs ignited across the floor, ceiling, even across Elara's skin. They had not been waiting for obedience. They had been waiting for connection. The intruder's form began to falter, its shape losing cohesion. "She is unsealed," it screamed, the voice splitting into thousands. "She has bonded. The field cannot be broken." Lira turned to Elara. "Take my hand." Elara hesitated only a second, then did. The moment their fingers touched, the world disappeared. Elara found herself in a place outside time, a realm of woven starlight and memory. She could feel Lira's presence not beside her, but within her. Together they stood inside a lattice of quantum filaments, each one humming with encoded thought, echoing across galaxies. "This is the convergence field," Lira said. "The Forerunners didn't leave weapons. They left paths. Biological keys, and we are one of them, together. What are we unlocking?" "Not a vault," Lira whispered. "A bridge." The continuum intruder shrieked from beyond, but its voice was distant now. Powerless dot back in the physical realm, the fracture sealed itself in a flash of golden fire. The hallway was scorched but whole. Security teams arrived just in time to see the last of the continuum's projections dissolve into smoke and vanish. Lira collapsed. Elara caught her. The girl was shaking but alive, and in her eyes something new, not fear, but knowing. "The others will come," she said softly, "but now we have the bridge. And soon we'll have the others like me, hidden." Elara nodded. "We'll find them, together." From orbit, the continuum ship shuddered, fracturing into shards of black light driven back not by force, but by something ancient and untouchable. Hope. The weeks that followed the Continuum incursion reshaped Halcyon 7 into something closer to a sacred outpost than a research station. What was once a floating ring of science and protocol had become a living artifact. Crystalline growths laced themselves into the walls. Energy fields no one could explain shimmered through the corridors, disrupting lights and instruments but never harming crew. Some swore they heard whispers in the dark fragments of Forerunner, voices carried through quantum echoes, and at the heart of it all was Lira. She no longer needed biometric scans or clearance codes. Doors opened when she walked near. Security. Grids dimmed respectfully. The station had begun to recognize her. It bent around her like light refracting through glass, subtle but undeniable. Elara watched it all unfold with awe and unease. Every evening, she stood by the upper observatory, watching her daughter train. Not in combat or speechcraft, but in something deeper resonance. Lira would sit cross-legged on the crystalline floor of the transformed isolation chamber, now rechristened the core room, surrounded by slowly orbiting glyphs. Her breath would steady. Her skin would glow. And the station would listen. She had begun unlocking messages buried within its system's hidden memory strands, encoded in the original structure by the Forerunners. Each sequence was like a story, a lesson, a warning, and each one pushed the boundary of what Elara had once called science. Then came the decoded transmission. Merrick rushed into Elara's lab late one evening, face pale, datapad trembling in his hands. "It's not a message," he said, breathless. "It's a map." She took the pad. Her eyes narrowed as her gaze swept across the unfolding data, three-dimensional constellations, coordinates bent through folded space, and a central node labeled in Forerunner glyphs. Cradle of the Second Genesis. "Is it real?" Elara whispered. Lira's resonance cracked it open. It was buried beneath 30 encryption walls, sealed for eons. "It's pointing to a system we've never charted, one only reachable through something called the Bridge Protocol." Elara stared at the coordinates. Something deep in her chest stirred a memory not her own, a vision Lira had once shared, of Kale whispering into a stasis chamber. "When the bridge is born, the cradle will open. The others will rise." "The others," she said aloud. "More like her?" "Not just like her," Merrick replied. "Made for her." The door burst open. Tyran Solari stood rigid, fury written across every line of his Centauri face. "You've kept this from the Alliance?" "I just received the data," Elara began. "We've received our own," Tyran cut in, throwing a projection into the air. A grainy, distorted video feed filled the room, taken from a deep space outpost near the Perseid Rim. A figure floated in a sealed chamber. Skin like translucent metal, veins glowing gold, biometric tags unreadable. "We found another," Tyran said. "A hybrid. Not human Centauri, human something else." She activated a dormant Forerunner shard with a single breath, then disappeared into thin air. "And now you tell me we have a map?" Lira entered without knocking. She had felt the shift. "They're waking up," she said simply. "The others." Tyran turned, eyes hard. "This is spreading. And uncontrolled hybrid emergence means chaos. War. Entire species arguing over which key belongs to them." "No," Lira said softly. "This isn't about control. It's about joining. The Forerunners didn't leave weapons behind. They left people." Tyran raised a brow. "You're saying these hybrids are messages?" "Messengers," Elara corrected. "Living links between species, between worlds, between time." The projection flared again. A second hybrid, this. Time male, surrounded by shattered stasis glass, markings on his back glowing with Forerunner script. His last words before vanishing were transcribed. "I heard her call. I'm going to the cradle." Elara turned to Lira. "We have to follow the map." "You're not authorized," Tyrion began. "Then revoke my license," Elara snapped. "Strip my credentials. I don't care. I'm not going to let this unfold without knowing what it means." Lira stepped beside her, voice resolute. "You don't need authorization for a homecoming." Halcyon 7 trembled slightly. A soft sound filled the air like metal singing. The station's AI spoke. Cradle path initialized. Confirming quantum bridge sequence. Awaiting biological imprint. "Elara Voss." Elara turned to her daughter. "Are you ready?" Lira looked up, her eyes gleaming with radiant light. "I was made for this." Far above them, hidden in the quantum folds of the station's core, the Forerunner bridge began to hum. Light flooded the observatory dome, wrapping the station in an aurora of color. The stars beyond shifted, bent, and realigned not as celestial objects, but as coordinates in an ancient language. A path was opening, and it led not just to answers, but to beginnings. The cradle system wasn't mapped in any human archive, nor in the Centauri stellar charts. It sat beyond the rim, tucked within a folded pocket of space accessible only through the activated bridge protocol coordinates etched not in code, but in biology. Lyra's resonance lit the path, and the Forerunner lattice followed. When Halcyon 7 emerged from the quantum corridor, it didn't enter a star system. It entered a sanctuary. The space surrounding them pulsed with impossible geometry, massive. Orbiting constructs shaped like halos and spirals, each one humming with energy older than any species still walking. A planet hung at the center of the construct, wreathed in rings of glowing memory thread. Storms danced across its atmosphere in fractal patterns. Every scan returned the same answer. The planet was alive. "Artificial biosphere," Merrick whispered. "But sentient. Every reading is adapting to our presence." Lira stood at the forward observation window, her skin softly radiant, her expression unreadable. It's the cradle, where the Forerunners made their final stand. Where the first bridge failed. Tyrion Solari stepped up behind her. "Failed?" She nodded. "They tried to merge too quickly. Too many species. Not enough understanding. They left it dormant, waiting for someone who could finish the equation." Elara joined them, heart pounding. "And you think that's you?" "No," Lira said. "Us." The cradle planet opened a channel. Not through language, but emotion, grief, hope, awe, regret. Millions of voices in one resonant hum. The Forerunners hadn't died. They had transcended into the quantum substrate of the planet itself. The hybrids Lira and the others were not just their legacy. They were the bridge to bring others into that same evolution, and the process was beginning again. "Prepare a landing party," Tyrion said, voice clipped, but the planet responded first. A beam of pale white energy reached from its surface like a hand and pulled. Halcyon-7 groaned as gravitational systems failed. "No impact detected." Merrick shouted, "We're being invited." In seconds, the ship passed through the cradle's upper atmosphere without heat, without drag, without resistance. The station slowed gently, descending like a feather. And then it stopped suspended, in air above a vast glowing field. There, waiting below, stood them. Hybrids. Dozens of them. Perhaps hundreds. Their features varied: human, Centauri, and other forms long forgotten, but all bore the mark. Threads of light beneath their skin, eyes that shimmered with memory not their own. Children of forbidden unions, survivors of old experiments. Secrets. Born in silence. They stepped forward in unison as Lira descended the boarding ramp, and they bowed. Elara followed. And the moment her foot touched the soil, a wave of warmth passed through her bones like a memory rediscovered. This place, this cradle, was made for connection. It sang with the desire to unify, not conquer. And it had chosen her daughter to lead the way. From within the crowd, a tall male hybrid approached. His features bore faint traces of Kale, the same angular jaw, the same quiet intensity. "I dreamed of her voice," he said. "Across years, across stars. The others are still dreaming. But now they're waking up." Lira reached out her hand. A pulse rippled across the cradle. Reality bent. Glyphs surged across the sky, forming a lattice of gold above their heads. The very atmosphere shimmered as if tuned to a harmonic frequency only Lira could guide. Suddenly, Elara staggered. Memories not her own filled her visions of other cradles across the galaxy. Other hybrids rising, doors long sealed now wide open. Cultures long separate, now touching through shared blood and light. The convergence had begun. Tyron's voice cut through the rising awe. And what about the continuum? What about the ones who still believe purity means survival? Lira turned, the wind catching the edge of her cloak as the cradle pulsed behind her. "They will come," she said. "They will try to control, to silence. But they cannot stop what has already begun." She faced her mother. "You told me once that you feared what I was, that I might be a mistake. But you stayed. You chose to believe in me. And now I know." "Why?" Elara's throat tightened. "Why?" Lira smiled. "Because love writes its own code, stronger than blood, stronger than history. It was never about being compatible. It was about choosing to belong." Above them, the lattice solidified. A spiral formed in the sky, then opened. The bridge was complete. Energy arced from the cradle to Halcyon 7, then to the surrounding constructs, then further to other galaxies. Beacons lit, coordinates formed. Hybrid minds across the stars awakened. In the silence that followed, the voice of the Forerunners returned, not as one voice, but many. "You have succeeded where we failed. You built not a machine, but a family." Elara stood beside her daughter. As the horizon shimmered with life. No more hiding. No more being hunted. This was the beginning, not of dominance, not of conquest, but of understanding. The cradle had not been a destination. It was a door, and they had finally stepped through.